Hello, everyone. This is Edwin Black. Everyone knows I'm devoted to books and authors. This season, instead of wine or candy boxes, give the gift of knowledge, the gift of wisdom. Give a meaningful, perspective-changing book, which will imbue the recipient with lasting insight. As I do every year, I make a few recommendations. This year, I suggest any of the 4 titles you'll hear about that will help you understand the tremulous times we find ourselves in. We start with the most ahead of its time book, The Multifront War, by threat analyst Ken Abramowitz. Ken, as you warned, we've witnessed the rise of China and extremist Islamism. What has worried you most this year, and what do you see ahead for the Multifront War?
Thank you, Edwin. What worries me the most is handling all the challenges simultaneously. America is basically fighting Russia through Ukraine, Iran through Israel, and China through Taiwan. 2 of those are hot wars, and China and Taiwan can become a hot war at any time. And so it's difficult for government and for American people to manage basically 3 wars simultaneously when we didn't plan for 3 wars simultaneously. We don't have enough weapons for 3 wars simultaneously. So it's straining the political system, the military system, and the population in general.
Well, that's most astute, and I agree with what you've said. Now, Ken, what's ahead for you with regard to the Multifront War?
2 separate issues. What's ahead for me as an individual and for me as a citizen of America and an observer of Israel. So both of those issues for America, the next 3 to 5 months is pure chaos as the new administration comes in and tries to make sense of these 3 wars and tries to win. You know, you always can stop a war by losing. So I expect the new Trump administration to want to win in Ukraine, win versus Iran, and win in China. For me as an individual, it's time for me to update my book and add a new chapter. I've already updated it twice, and it's time to update a new chapter, which is basically what should the Trump administration do? What should Israel do? And contending with these challenges. And by the way, what should Europe do? So I would expect to cover all those 3 big issues of what should Western civilization, Western societies do to win wars instead of tying or losing them.
Well, thank you, Ken. And so now we turn to ethics analyst Faye Lincoln, who gifted the world with her penetrating volume, Values That Shape the World. Faye, what have you witnessed in our world since your book was published, as societies everywhere seem to spin out of control?
Well, since the war, October 7th of last year, Israel continues to face devastating wars against Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, the Iranian regime. While we've seen wins such as the elimination of Assad and the successful attacks against Hezbollah in Lebanon, a void still exists for more extreme groups to fill the gap. And the question is, where will Israel find the energy and the resilience to fight against enemies from all sides, to save the remaining hostages, and to provide security for their people? Israel always has had to defend itself, but today is different. They're fighting not only their external enemies, but also their internal differences. Now, in my book, Values That Shape the World, you will travel through the rich landscape of Jewish history, where the values in our ancient texts grew to test our people's ability to survive crises over time. These values guided them in times of war, in developing economic trade under the rule of law, through learning and scholarship to survive the diaspora, and to live within other nations by the value of peace. In my book, I also compare these to today's values of democracy and capitalism against the backdrop of authoritarian and dictator nations, to today's educational institutions as learning declines in our schools and universities, along with the rise of anti-Semitism on college campuses, and today's wars and terrorist inhumanities, which we thought we had overcome. Last, our rich history takes us into the future to discover how our ancient texts and history once again can come alive to develop a vibrant set of resonating values to guide us through the accelerating growth of technology, innovation, and geopolitical tensions. Values That Shape the World is available in hard copy, paperback, and ebooks on Amazon in 190 countries and online with Barnes & Noble, as well as Google Audiobooks. I think this will make a great Hanukkah gift for family and friends.
You're so right, Faye. And since we seem to find a turning point in our society right now, what's ahead for the world and what's ahead for you as an author?
Well, both in terms of what's ahead in the world and in my new book that I'm working on right now, Future Values, I see many trends. One is the trend against the authoritarian and dictatorship backdrop of the movement toward democracy, strengthening their alliances in this world, particularly with the European Union and given the war that's been going on between Russia and Ukraine. I also see that advanced manufacturing is coming back to the United States because of the U.S. supply chain constraints that are taking place with China and the geopolitical tensions there. With the growth of technology, we have social media issues, artificial intelligence, and big data. And the question is how we can use this for good, for more productive uses, such as in terms of drug research and development, and the role that Israel plays in this kind of technology. In spite of the war, the research and development that Israel is doing around the world with technology and artificial intelligence and helping other countries puts them number one in the world in terms of research and development and the amount of capital that they spend. They play a key role in this type of transition that we're seeing in terms of technology and innovation against the backdrop of the geopolitical tensions and in spite of the war.
Well, I can't wait for your next book to come out. That's Future Values, right?
That's correct. We hope to see it by next year.
Okay, well, it can't come soon enough since the future is now. Now, thirdly, we bring in distinguished security writer Rachel Ehrenfeld, who had the courage to publish The Soros Agenda, exposing one of America's most troubling donors, George Soros. Rachel, we have seen NGOs and tax exempts run wild in our country. What do you see ahead now that legislation is pending to curtail destructive tax exempt donations? And tell us a little bit about your book.
Well, the Soros Agenda is really more about the agenda than about Soros. It is about how he developed and implemented the agenda that he charted in order to destabilize the United States of America, which he doesn't like, and capitalism. That was a major target, and a smaller target was the Jewish state of Israel. So the book really describes the plans and his modus operandi. And it's important because, sure, many people know about Soros, heard about Soros, about his NGOs and giving money, the biggest donor of the Democrat Party, but they don't really know how he planned it and how he implemented it. And it's important to know because the structure is still there. While Soros himself he's 94 plus, is not active, his son Alexander is now running the Open Society Foundations. $25 billion in his pocket are giving him enough money and some very bad advisors around him to create a lot of havoc and continue his activities in destabilizing the United States and also Israel. The left in Israel is supported not only by the State Department, Biden State Department, but also by organizations, NGOs such as Open Society Foundations, if not directly, then indirectly. The Soros' foundations have also supported directly and continue to support and indirectly organizations that are demonstrating against Israel, pro-Palestine, pro-Hamas, all over the country, not only this country, other countries as well. So it's important to know what's behind it, what was the plan. And I think that would help to prevent and maybe fight against them. As of the new tax laws that will prevent NGOs from funding political activities, well, there is a law actually that says that. If you are a not-for-profit organization, you are not supposed to do any political activities. However, the Soros organizations have been doing it for decades and nobody stopped them.
Well, Rachel, tell us what's next for you. You're a prolific author and you've taken on some of the most challenging topics. What's next?
Next is a book on, the title may change, but the subject is the Palestinians as the head of the spear for Islamization, for spreading Islam in the Western world.
Thank you, Rachel. This brings me to my own work. This year I'm recommending my turning point book, The Farhud, Roots of the Arab-Nazi Alliance in the Holocaust. Now, I chose the Farhud because we see right now, as others have informed you, the massive and fiery rise of anti-Semitism, much of it fueled by the same mindset and the same ethos that drove the infamous Arab Nazi pogrom in Baghdad in 1941. And it was this book that really launched the international recognition of the Farhud. Of course, I drove the recognition for International Farhud Day in a live global broadcast, live streamed from the United Nations, which now has actually been adopted by the Israeli Knesset. If you want to know what's happening on our campuses today, read the Farhud and you'll get an idea. It's frightening and it's revealing. All of these books that I've mentioned, including my own, can be purchased on Amazon, on Barnes & Noble, Google Books, iTunes, Kobo, and other platforms. Have a good year end, and please, whatever you do, give a good book. Thank you. I'm Edwin Black.